What do you think about Brunello 2010?
I find the 2010 vintage to be immaculate. The sapidity, the completeness of the vintage is really beautiful. The wines are showing the true characteristic of Sangiovese, and I think the aging potential for a lot of these wines is going to be fantastic.
What about Riserva?
The Reserva 2009, the 2009. What I like about the 2009, because I'm in the restaurant business, is that the wines are plush and drinkable today, but obviously since the Reserva, they have a little more broad shoulder characteristics to them, and I think will age in the midterm. But I think the wines right now for us in the hospitality industry are drinking great.
I really like 2010 as a vintage. It's one of the few times for me that you get wines that are completely physiologically ripe, so not just a sweet, ripe forward. The wines already have secondary, tertiary flavors that show more of the soil character, more of what Montalcino flavor is all about. And such great balance. It's an exceptional vintage.
What do you think something about Riserva 2009?
2009 Reservas are very easy to drink. They're a little more forward. I like to think of them as something, instead of 2010 you put in your cellar, 2009 is something that you can drink right away. Good balance, easy to drink, very flavorful, not too much tannin, but wines that have a lot of flavor and are easy to drink.
I have already tasted 2010 in January, and which was quite an impressive tasting because I really thought that there were some exceptional wines. It is a great year, no doubt, and it also showed that for me, in short, the excellent are fantastic, the good are great, and the more modest wines are very good. So that year has been spectacular for me. But I'm tasting now only 2013 Rosso because I like Rosso as a category very much. And I think there are some pretty serious wines here. I tasted now about 40, and if that shows how 2030 for Brunello will be, it is very, very promising. It's a very promising begin to start to have a look at 2013 for the region. I'm quite pleased with it.
I'm very amazed because what I have now here in this tasting are the great wines. So I've heard a lot about the vintage and about the great expectations, and I'm very happy that the great expectations come true because what I have tasted so far, and it's nearly half of the wines presented, I'm very satisfied. So I'm happy to have another great vintage of Brunello.
It's a great vintage, yeah, for sure. Lovely structure, fresh, juicy acidity. Some of the wines perhaps lack depth, but all of them have lovely length, and most of them, nearly all, are very wonderfully pure, elegant, and it's a very refined vintage. I like it very much.
I think this is a wonderful vintage. After 2009, which was rather light and not great, this is absolutely full vintage. It's going to last much longer than 2009, and it's very concentrated. The crop is very good. The wines are very aromatic, beautiful, seductive aromas, and I think it's going to go great distance. Really enjoyable wine. Very happy.
Something about Riserva 2009.
I'm not too happy about that, to be honest. If you find them, you drink them now, but I would not keep them for long. Sorry.
It's an excellent vintage, and we know that because when the vintage was first presented 4 or 5 years ago, it received 5 stars from the consortium. So we were aware of the fact that it was going to be an excellent vintage, and we have already had the Rosso di Montalcino 2010 years ago, also excellent wines. So we were prepared for a very enjoyable experience.
And something about the Riserva 2009.
It's a year that's readier. It doesn't have the structure or the intensity of 2010, but the wines are very pleasurable. Not many people made the Riserva in 2009. Evidently, they preferred to put it into the regular Brunello.
I think 2010 is a very good vintage, and almost all the wines we tried are so beautiful and elegant with beautiful balance and acidity. So it's very good.
And something about Riserva 2009.
2009 is much more full-bodied to me, less acidity than 2010. But 2010 is more elegant, and the 2009 is more full-bodied. To me, it's that, like that. Yeah.
I think it's an extremely good vintage. I think that it's very homogeneous, that I think the average quality is extremely good across all of the subzones. The best wines have got freshness and balance and energy and length and concentration. There are some wines that aren't quite as great as the others, obviously. This is a big region, but I think it's a very good vintage. And I think 13 is probably a vintage that's better suited maybe to Rosso than to Brunello. It's a lighter year, it's a more fragrant year. The Rossos I've had have been very good. I think maybe for Brunello not quite the concentration that we would expect.